says
It's great timing. You better sip that. It's doing something weird.
It's just water. It's
Oh, you're gonna, nope, you're about to have an incident. What the hell? Put your mouth on
we're on air now. So.
it. Trying to wait to call it to order until we've resolved the seltzer issue. Looks fine over here.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, everybody ready? Good evening. My name's Shanna Cox. I'm the chair of the Lewiston Planning Board. I welcome everyone here this evening and officially call this meeting to order. We'll note that we do have a couple of absences, so our vice chair will be helping call roll this evening.
Okay, Roger Dupree.
Yes.
Michael Marcotte. Present. Lucy Bisson is absent. Mark Roy is present. Shanna Cox.
Present,
Amy Smith.
has been excused.
Alexander Pine.
Here.
Anthea Burns is absent. And Zoe Lindstrom.
Here.
And then
This evening, we are also joined by city staff, Shelley Norton, our deputy director, Craig Tebow, our land use planner, and Linda Tripp, who's great to have back, our administrative assistant. We'd like to ensure that Zoe is a full voting member this evening, and we'll be moving forward with 6 voting members. As we begin adjustments to agenda, I would like to propose one. I'd like to add an item to other business. It would become letter C. This is an extension request for the approval of the Martell School Apartments for Phase 1. It's my understanding that due to some staffing changes at the Lewiston Housing Authority, as well as with consultant team members also being changed, the expiration of the project stuck up a little bit, and it would have expired this Thursday, September 25th. As we'll discuss under other agenda items, they do plan on moving forward with construction this fall. There is no changes being requested at this time, thus no public hearing is needed, so we'd be dealing with this under other business. Are there any other adjustments to the agenda?
No.
Okay. Any correspondence that you'd like to note for the record?
No.
Thank you. Then we do have a public hearing this evening that we'll begin with. GRE LLC has submitted a development review application to construct a 5,600 square foot bus garage on a 1.6 acre lot at 145 River Road. I believe, Craig, you're going to be introducing this item for us.
Yes, sir. This will be in addition to the existing building on site. As you'll see behind you, we've got the site plan up on the big screen. The proposed building is to the left there. This property is located on the Rousel Way, which is a private subdivision, private commercial subdivision. And in past projects that have been approved along this Rousel Way, we haven't required landscaping along the Rousel Way, along the Rousel Way side. The last example was some self-storage facilities. However, as this property is on the corner with Rousel Way and River Road, planning, our only real comment is we would want to see landscaping that standard be met along River Road where the proposed structure is going to be. Every other comment, police, fire, and public works, those comments have all been addressed. It's really just the landscaping that's the last outstanding one. We took a visit over there, I think 2 weeks ago, and we have some images that are attached to your staff review that show sort of an existing condition. And we think, we believe the board should review those images. If you are satisfied with the conditions out there, if you believe those meet the landscaping requirements, then that's that. You won't really need any conditions. If not, then we would recommend there is a condition that we have here as a staff recommendation. If existing vegetation has been deemed insufficient by the board to meet the landscaping requirements prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant will provide an updated site plan that indicates additional street trees on the portion of River Road where the new structure is proposed. The landscaping requirement, if you remember, is street trees every 25 to 50 feet on center. And that's that. That's all we got.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the planning board for staff before we invite the applicant up? Seeing none, happy to invite the applicant up to offer any additional insights or answer any additional questions the board might have before we open it up for public comment.
Doesn't look like there's a lot of public here tonight, so.
You don't know that these two gentlemen are very excited to comment.
My name is Mike Gatto. I'm here representing GRE, and Noah Gendron, the next generation of Gendrons, is here tonight, also representing this project. I guess I think we meet the tree planting requirements, so I guess I need to have more guidance or what's going on with what staff thinks. I know it's not pretty out there, but I think we got about 165 feet of frontage where this building is, and I think at 25 to 50, we use 37 feet, you'd end up with 4 trees, and I think we got, 10 to a dozen trees out there planted already. We don't have a lot of shrubs, but we have undergrowth that is there. We also have a 5-foot-high fence with slats. And the building is going to be facing interior, away from River Road. So there'll just be a building wall, there'll be no windows, and the building will shield most of the parking, and, because the corner is all vegetated up there. The top left corner is all vegetated. People aren't gonna see the cars and stuff from the street, so we didn't think landscaping was gonna be required.
That's next door to Northeast Painting, right?
It is not, it's on the same property, it's now all owned by
Yeah.
GRE. So yeah, it's, Northeast owns or uses the other 2 buildings.
That's the warehouse.
It's a warehouse, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, painting, the painting in the warehouse, and then the offices,
At
the
the
small
bottom,
one.
yeah. Now, the buses are gonna be parked on that area in the bottom, or,
Yeah, the area of the bottom, we got 10 bus spaces, and then 18 or 20 parking spaces, I think, in total, for employees and drivers. There'll be 15 drivers based on 15 vehicles, 10 buses, 5 vans, and then 3 employees that will be there full-time in the building.
what kind of buses?
They're the CityLink buses. as far as I know.
CityLink, yeah.
Yeah. I got 40-foot spaces, and everybody says, yeah, it works.
Now, the
So,
pictures that you have here, you've got a dead tree that's there, is that yours or Northeast?
Northeast is, we own Northeast too.
Okay,
It's all ours.
now, is that gonna be taken down and a new tree put in?
We weren't planning to touch anything along the street. If there are dead trees, then they would get cleaned up. Okay, because we've already cut and cleaned the site, so.
Roger, I think you'll find the second photo below is the most recent and the above is before. So the dead tree that you're picturing in the top photograph,
Oh, I see, okay.
I believe has been removed, and you'll see that kind of anchoring photo on the right of the tall tree is a little bit larger in the bottom.
I have some additional pictures that I took too, if you want them, but, because I wanted to get out there and get across from the gap. We do have a couple gaps, like I said, on the plan, 40 feet or so up near the Northeast building. Then there's a utility thing that has about 35 feet of guardrail and stuff in front of them. So if you want to see some additional pictures, I can bring them up. It's up to you folks.
Thanks. I'm curious if there's others from the board that have questions, and Roger will come back if you have any additional ones. Questions from others?
So in terms of the new building, so that's going to be behind the fence line?
Yes,
So really, there's really no interaction with the street there. It's just the fence with visual interaction. So just the fence with the
With the
privacy
trees.
slats,
Yep.
and then the existing tree coverage, and that's
That's it.
it. And then in terms of distance between the fence and the road right now, is that like, sort of having trouble visualizing this, like
15 feet?
15
maybe?
feet?
yeah, 10, 15 feet, I would
Yeah.
guess, yeah. The right-of-way is closer to the curb.
Mhm.
So, I mean, there's probably 10 feet of vegetation there. It's just, it's a kind of a row of trees that show up. And it's mowed up to, the trees starting on the plan. It's been mowed for years in front of Northeast Painting. So it's been mowed, for many years ago, so.
And then staff's question is around whether or not there should be intentional planting to meet the requirement up to the corner of the private road? Just to make sure I'm understanding this.
We were looking at potentially putting in planting between the fence and the road. That would be right. And, in the picture, you can sort of see a gap there for sure. But we would also acknowledge that there is, the number of planting, that the existing vegetation, if that were spaced out, that would possibly meet the standard. But again, we would just recognize that gap that's there. That seems to be pretty substantial.
Can I ask a follow-up question, please? And you might have the photograph to answer my question. And so I guess I'm acknowledging that we're seeing like a slice, and I'm assuming the slice that you've shown us is the slice with the gap. I don't know that I'm seeing it in context of where there are trees present, potentially to the right of where the photo shuts off, so that we can get a sense of what other plantings have been done and maintained as it relates to the gap that the photo is on.
Is that sort of what you're looking for?
Well, I'm really not. I'm looking for it.
Further down.
Yeah, and the second question that I have that might be answered by a tax map check or even like a Google map, which we're all doing on our phones, just so folks don't think that we're up here on social media, is what property is across from this sightline? Like, is it at an intersection? Is it across from a residential property? Like, what's the visual impact and who is being impacted by it, other than folks driving by at 40 miles an hour?
So up on the top of the page, you see a driveway, and I'm pretty certain that driveway goes into a building site that was demolished, trailer removed, owned by the family. The nearest house is probably 200 to 300 feet. Where's the north arrow on that? I don't see the north arrow. Oh, can I move it?
I'm happy to pull up my own Google Maps. I think that is fundamentally part of my question, is both what does exist
So it's about
that's
200
not-
to 300 feet north is the house that's also owned by the applicant, which is likely more to be torn down than rented again. So next door is Northern Utilities or Unitil, and Northeast Painting, and then there's electrical contractor, marijuana grow across from Razzle Way, and Walmart out behind. Walmart distribution.
Yeah, there's nothing there, it's just a sand pit on the other side.
Yeah, and
Before you get,
By the turnpike.
yeah, it's owned by the applicant. Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing there as far
There's
as.
nothing there. There are some homes just after you go past the turnpike. There are a couple of homes that are still
Yeah, but
there.
they're not impacted with this.
Yeah, they're not impacted with this project at all. And I do have 4 pitches as I drove down. I have the gap, the trees, the gap, the trees.
yeah. And Razzle, this is less a like who's maintaining infrastructure question and more a like how is it being used? But the address is 145 River Road. It shows access to it is actually off Razzle Way, which is also noted in your memo. Who uses Razzle Way and who are the other tenants? Because I understand it to be GRE across the board.
GRE, except for one place down in the end of Razzle Way, there is a new solid waste hauler, I believe, at the end of the road. I think I'm going from memory, I think there's 9 condo units and 7, I think yeah. So I see James Industry on this one as Unit 1 on the right. Unit 2 is the one we're developing. So we own all the units except for the unit down at the end of the road, and there's just one other owner. There's 2 owners that are not controlled by us.
Thank you.
And some of 2 of the lots down below are vacant.
Other questions from the board?
Could you just please remind us what you measured as far as those gaps, like what the distance is?
40, 45 feet from the building to the beginning of the trees,
Mhm.
55 feet of trees, 35 feet for the, Unitil gas step pump area there that's left open, and then another 35 feet of trees.
Okay, thank you.
Bless you. Other questions from the board? I'm gonna offer my thoughts at this point. I struggle with holding you to the ordinance because of the impact being pretty minimal in terms of who is viewing it, and I struggle making exceptions to any ordinance that should be applied universally. And I think when I look at the images, I think it's one tree and the shrubs that feel like it's missing. And I'm happy to see your other photos. I don't know if they're loaded on that laptop or the best way to see them. Because it does not appear to meet the standard, and the impact of it not meeting the standard is pretty minimal.
So if you look at one, it starts at the open fenced area,
Yeah.
and then 2 is directly across the trees.
Were these trees planted when you developed the first time?
No, we bought this site, it was developed, 90s, early 90s?
93?
93, I couldn't remember, and I should, it's probably in my letter. So, I'm sorry.
I mean, I see trees, and I think you're like one shy or really close, right? 25 to 50 is pretty subjective.
Yeah, that's what I saw. It
Yeah.
was 25 to 50. If we got 40, 45, 50 feet, okay. We got a tree at the one edge, but, I paced it off at 40 feet.
Yeah.
But again, it's really subjective, and there's, in that 55-foot clump between the 2 openings, there's at least 8 trees there, 6 to 8 trees.
Sorry, in that one you mean?
Yep,
Okay,
yeah.
thanks. It feels like the shrubs every 5 feet is the part that's missing to me.
That I can't argue about.
Yeah, and like random undergrowth isn't quite the same.
And I was looking more at the tree standards,
Yeah, yeah. My preference would be to move forward with the application that has no other concerns noted, but to have a plan that shows the shrubs every 5 feet in front of the fence. And I'm just giving the board a spot to start a conversation from. Mr. Marcotte.
Just like the last time when we had a review on Razor Way, a lot of the ground is sand out there. There's a lot of sand from the river up, right through to the sand pit, which is on the other side of River Road. I have no problem with what I'm seeing here with the level of vegetation and fencing. I don't believe that there's an eyesore to any of the neighbors along that way. So I have no problem with striking the recommendation number 1 under the action necessary.
Thank you. Other contributions or comments from the board? Mark?
I agree with you that shrubs are more than just,
Yeah, I wish it wasn't that way, and I wish we could arbitrarily choose when the perceived impact is less enough to not apply, and I'm not comfortable making that recommendation, and I apologize for that, quite frankly.
There was a comment over here.
Yeah, thank you, Zoe.
Yeah, it was basically, the same as you and Member Roy, that I think that as far as the trees go, 40 feet, even up to 50 feet, you don't need to plant more trees, but the shrubs every 5 feet is pretty clear, and I don't see a reason to waive it in this instance, holding everyone to the same standard.
And so are you suggesting that there needs to be shrubs along the entire 165 feet, or shrubs only in the gap between the building and where the vegetation starts?
That's a really great question. I'd clarify, we're not suggesting anything. We're reading the ordinance as it's written, because I think 3 of us have noted we wouldn't suggest it otherwise. And I think that's an important thing for us to keep in mind as well as you, because I don't know that it's our preference, given what your across the street neighbors look like. I do think it's challenging for us to make decisions to waive ordinances. The language that we have, and I'd look to staff to clarify if there's additional information, states that the ordinance requires street trees every 25 to 50 feet, with shrubs every 5 feet along the roads. It does appear that we have historic precedent having waived the planting requirement on Razzle Way previously because it is a private road. Does it still maintain private road status?
No, this is River Road, this is a public road.
No, we're talking about we don't require it on Razzle Way, that's what she said.
Yeah.
What's that?
She's just saying that we don't require it on Razzle Way.
Right,
because
okay,
it's a
I'm
private
sorry, I
road.
thought she.
Yes.
No, you're both right, and I appreciate the conversation that got us to a clear point.
Yeah, and again, I think the way we've used the ordinance in the past is we plant a tree and then go 5 feet and plant a shrub, and it just, that's the mechanics we've used in the past. Plant a tree, 5 feet, shrub, and you don't plant a tree and a shrub, you plant a tree. And so I'm
So your
just,
question is like, is it a shrub every 5 feet, particularly if there are no trees being placed in the 40-foot gap? That's your clarifying question?
and then also you got the Unitil facility, which we can't plant in front of that, and that's, they gotta have access to that. They get a gate that goes into, that's a fairly significant, I don't know
Yeah,
what
please
kind
don't
of-
plant to block a gate. We wouldn't want that either.
Yeah, no, there's guardrail there, and so, again,
Before I open it up for public comment, which I am required to do, regardless of how many people are in the audience, can staff offer any additional insights on, is the shrub every 5 feet? Is it 5 feet and a tree counts as the next 5 feet, so a shrub might be 10 feet? Precedent, thoughts?
So I think the way it's written, it's every 5 feet. I don't know, as we have a lot of projects where we've done that, as far as I think there's been inconsistency in the requirements for how we've applied the shrub element of the street tree planting. We've been very consistent in applying the street tree standards, except on Razzle Way. I would say it's the every 5 feet, but if somebody was planting a tree and they wanted to omit it, where the shrub was, we would probably let them.
Great.
Yeah.
For you and your design plan team, can we offer the clarity that there is a planting every 5 feet, and you're welcome to choose whether it's a shrub or a tree?
okay.
In the 40-foot gap and not in the other areas?
That's perfect then.
Will that help
That's the
clarify for you?
clarification I was looking for.
Is that clarification sufficient for staff and the concerns you raised?
Mm-hmm.
Great, so noting that that is the context we would be opening up public comment to. With that, I'm going to open up public comment. Should you choose to make a public comment this evening, you would step to the podium, state your name, address, and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Seeing none, we're going to close the public comment period. Thank you. Any further discussion by staff? Board? Mr. Marcotte?
This particular project is in the industrial zone? if I'm not
Industrial
mistaken?
zone, yes.
And how much more industrial zone is along both sides of River Road from the start of where Goddard Road is and all the way out to the dump and beyond?
We'd have to pull up the map for you, but
While you do, can I ask a follow-up question? Because
Yeah.
part of, I appreciate your clear points and pushback this evening, and we are a planning board that likes to learn from those. And so while having to deal with what we have on the books currently, always welcoming feedback, while Shelley does some poking around, I would ask, Craig, do you have any sense if any of those components around street plantings are in any way specified for the zones that could be waived, and or if they're fronting a different zone? So I'm thinking about the difference between an industrial zone with an industrial zone across the street versus an industrial zone with a residential zone across the street.
It goes one way as far as I know. If it's in the industrial zone and there is a residential zone, adjacent to that, then additional buffering is required, not necessarily additional landscaping. The language around the requirement for landscaping is really just any sort of commercial or non-residential district would require that landscaping. It doesn't specify between industrial zone, urban enterprise, highway, but it's a uniform standard.
So next time we look at things, that might be a spot that we could look at where the requirements to make pretty the external facing is less important if it's not a thoroughfare, major business corridor, facing another industrial zone.
That's your industrial zone.
I think we'd be open to that.
Yeah,
And it goes out.
and particularly industrial versus commercial.
So the map up there shows a turquoise outline around the parcel we're talking about, and you can see the extent of the industrial zone, which is quite far.
Here, so the industrial.
Wait, which part
Yeah.
is industrial?
Everything.
And guys, if this is helpful for you too,
Yeah.
pretty much everything we're seeing is industrial?
Yeah, until you get to this line around the resource conservation by the river. And then up here, when
So
we get
it's
to
an
Gardner
industrial
Road.
zone fronting an industrial zone, deep in the heart of an industrial zone
You got it.
that is not on a thoroughfare that people are taking to get to houses. I can understand your concern.
Well, my concern's deeper than that, and if you want background from my perspective, I served on,
Ooh, will you get close enough to the microphone to give it in a meaningful way that makes it on the record?
Yep.
That one should be working too.
I was on Design Lewiston Committee,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Walmart.
and we had a bunch of public hearings and a bunch of talk about things and meetings to talk about what should happen and what shouldn't. And what I recall from that process was that we agreed as a committee that the landscaping standards and the design development standards would work in the downtown area and see how that works.
Yeah, this is
And
the field over here.
For whatever reason, we stopped meeting as a committee, and I think the staff got busy, prior staff got busy.
Yep.
And the way they
Well
ultimately,
noted.
yeah, gone, prior stuff, whatever. The way it ultimately ended up, even though we said we wanted to keep that to the downtown, this landscape standard got implemented citywide. And it just, we had all those committee meetings, and it just,
Can I ask, is that accurate in a way that doesn't make it sound like I don't believe you? Only because I was also part of that
Yeah, no,
process.
it's-
We did create design standards that were for a design district, which is primarily downtown. Were these landscaping components added after that to other areas outside the design district?
So the requirement for the street trees and the shrubs are actually part of the Article 13 review criteria. And so I don't know for how long they've been in that, but they are consistent for all projects that come before the planning board.
I suspect that that baseline was there, and this language doesn't reflect the language that we did approve for the design district, which is, I suspect that these tree requirements were previously there.
the tree requirements of 25 to 50 feet have been there for years.
Yeah.
Okay, the shrubs were added. We
Shrubs
talked about,
family.
yeah, we talked about it in the design review committee meetings, about adding shrubs and other things, to get more specific
Yeah.
on that stuff. The shrubs were added, and then, again, agreed, let's just keep it here, see how it works,
Yeah.
before we put it in every district. I'm pretty certain, and it may have been a mistake, but I'm pretty certain that on Lot 9, Gendron Drive, we ended up with shrubs and trees. On Lot 10, all we had was street trees. So I don't,
Yeah.
I don't know the policy, it hasn't been administered consistently, so.
Which is why I'm really hesitant today to not continue to.
I get.
Can
I
you
get it.
provide us an update at our next planning board meeting on when those changes might have taken place and give us a little more context?
Sure, yeah.
Thanks. We will not hold off on deciding on
Yep.
today's application for that, but I think it will be really helpful. I appreciate you understanding.
Yeah, no,
I would look for a motion if there isn't further discussion.
I have further discussion.
Okay.
I was asking the question about the rest of River Road, where does the industrial start? Where does it end? And does it also include the Public Works yard that's being developed on the right side of River Road going out and the dump on the left?
While you and Mr. Dupree were having a side conversation, we did cover that, and this is, I think, the answer to the question you were asking. The other,
went back to the other thing.
it is firmly industrial, fronting industrial, in an industrial zone that is quite extended, I think is the answer to the question that you were looking
Can you
for.
go down, can you go up with it?
Sure.
I think the area he's talking about, CL for Floyd, no, the other one, I'm sorry. I think there's a residential area, I think, at the intersection of River Road. Yeah.
Yeah,
So all the way up to River Road is industrial, and then just as you turn onto River Road going to the dump, there's the residential area.
there's residential there.
Yeah.
Where's the Public Works yard that's being built out?
It's right there on the, where the arrow is in the bottom.
On the bottom?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So it's pretty much.
Right there, yeah.
So it's pretty much industrial from the Turnpike overpass to Alfred Bullock Parkway,
Yeah.
on both sides of the road. And one of the photos in here, apparently, even though it said the graphic was August of '25, probably for the floodplain, it was a graphic for, as of 2025, but the aerial of the other side of the road looked like Walmart hadn't been built yet. Does the street frontage of Walmart and River Road also have shrubs every 5 feet along that stretch of River Road?
I don't know the answer to that question, and I don't know when it was
There are
built.
none, so that would be inconsistent. And if it's inconsistent, I cannot support that condition of approval with respect to tonight's approval.
It wouldn't be inconsistent if the time of the Walmart application didn't have, as Mr. Grotto noted, the requirement for shrubs that he feels was instituted later, and which we've asked for some information on when that article was updated and applied to all
So
zones.
now we're gonna hold different developers because of timing. to
Certainly
different
not.
Standards, along a way that's purely industrial, that provides a lot of tax revenue to Lewiston. Anytime we add industrial activity to Lewiston, we improve our treasury as opposed to other types of development in Lewiston. And like I said earlier, this area is extremely sandy, all the way from the river and up through to Goddard Road. The ground underneath Walmart, the ground next to Walmart that I still remember as being Doobie's gravel pit, it's probably Gendron now. But all that area is very sandy, and I'm not, and also in the motion, I don't see any request to waive anything. It's a matter of deeming something sufficient or insufficient, and in my opinion, it is sufficient. And I would expect if the rest of the board is happy with putting the requirement in, that we have a separate vote on whether it's sufficient or insufficient before we have the overall vote.
I love that as a procedural way to handle it. Would you like to make the first motion? This would be the motion to deem it insufficient or not, and your phrasing will choose how the vote rolls.
Try to find the language in my head, but
I think you'd be looking for language that you would pull not from the action necessary, but from item 1 in the staff
I'm
recommendation.
not following you.
If you're making a motion just on finding of insufficiency or sufficiency.
Okay, I make a motion to find that the vegetation is sufficient for the project name.
GRE LLC's 145
West
River
Garage.
Road.
The bus garage.
Okay. I make a motion finding that the vegetation is sufficient for the River Road Industrial Condominium Bus Garage 145 River Road application.
Is there a second to the motion? Hearing none, the motion fails. I would have voted no on that motion, but I am moved by both the applicant and Mr. Marquette's advocacy, and I'm curious if there is the potential for us to provide language that says we recognize that it is insufficient against the current ordinance and that we'd like to waive that as it relates to the current ordinance being not thoughtfully prepared for industrial zones, particularly facing industrial zones, and request separately that we revisit the way that's applied in this zone so that we're not just arbitrarily waiving it, but that we're looking to make a systemic improvement. I don't find it sufficient as the ordinance is written. I do take issue with the ordinance, particularly in the way it's facing.
I can jump in.
Is there any reason that we couldn't take that approach? Permit police gonna show up and drag us all off to jail later? I'd like to see this become a better process for applicants, and I can understand the frustration that the applicant feels. It would be different if it was facing a residential neighborhood or even a busy commercial thoroughfare. It is neither.
So if we're looking at, apologies if I can jump in, if we're looking at doing a waiver, the waiver language, I can just read that verbatim. Planning board or staff review committee shall confirm the modification or waiver of the submission requirements of Article 13, subsection 3G, recommended by the planning director or designee when it determines that because of the size of the project or circumstances of the site, such requirements would not be applicable or would be an unnecessary burden upon the applicant, and that such modification or waiver would not adversely affect the abutting landowners or the general health, safety, and welfare of the city.
Thank you for that. Did you say Article 13, subsection G?
Article 13, section 3G7.
If the board would permit me to make a primary motion, much like you were going to carve out before we motion on what's in front of us, might I do that? Did you want to try?
What's the nature of that primary motion?
Well, how about if I make it and we see?
Well, is it a motion on what, the
It's a
agenda
motion
item?
to propose a waiver.
To propose a waiver? Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that the planning board finds that the circumstances of the project GRE LLC at 145 River Road is such that it is situated within an industrial district, facing an industrial district, and the requirement of shrubs every 5 feet is an unnecessary hardship on the applicant. Furthermore, we'd like to point out that this ordinance should be revisited in industrial zones, particularly facing industrial zones. Is there a second to that
Second.
motion? Thank you. Discussion on the motion.
So, you know, looking at the photos we were provided, and I think based on the discussion before, I mean, really what we're talking about is a waiver for the 40-foot gap, basically.
Shrubs, yep,
Of shrubs in that 40-foot gap.
that's correct.
So it's really just 8 shrubs.
Yeah.
And I think when you look at the overall streetscape there, you know, from that 40-foot section, then it's what, 100 feet, something of just blank wall on the existing development. I don't think there's any screening, anything like that. So we're really not, we're not going to end up with a gap tooth look or anything here. It really is sort of a natural transition into that intersection, clear line of sight. I think there's a lot going on here that supports just letting it be as is.
Thanks. Other discussion? Mark?
I'm fine with using the, what is that? The waiver. Just because I don't like it being inconsistent with rules.
The rule
Just
that's
to
an issue
be,
here.
just to be inconsistent,
Right.
right? I don't like it saying, well, we've been inconsistent in the past, so let's continue to be inconsistent.
Correct.
If there's a way to do it through rules, I'm not a big fan of being inconsistent in general, but at least there's a rules-based approach to doing it. I'm fine with that.
Thanks. Comments from Roger or Zoe, who we haven't heard from yet?
I think revisiting, as you suggested, would be a good thing because I agree with the general feeling that it's good to have ordinances that we can rely on to be consistent, that we aren't having to waive. So, yeah, but I don't have a problem with this waiver as it stands.
Thank you. Roger, anything from you?
Well, I think part of the section 13, states that it's an undue hardship as far as the applicant is concerned. I don't think we need a waiver in regards to that. We just follow the rules and say, no, we don't need it.
I think that we have to waive it, finding undue hardship for it to be following the
Well,
rules.
yeah, it's not, and it's not an additional waiver, it's just an application of that particular section.
Yeah. Did I manage to slip in the right section into your motion? And if not, will you make sure it says that? Okay. Then I'm going to ask my vice to call roll. Yeah, please.
Okay, Roger Dupree,
Yes,
Mike Marcotte,
Yes.
Mark Roy, yes. Shanna Cox?
Yes,
Did we get a second on that motion?
Yes.
we did.
Okay, good.
Alexander Pine?
Yes.
Zoe Lindstrom?
Yes.
Thank you. So that motion carries, which gives us the pending motion for the application. If somebody would like to say that motion, we'd be skipping item 1 of it. Anybody? Yep.
I make a motion that the application submitted by GRE LLC for the construction of a bus garage and accessory office space at 145 River Road meets all of the necessary criteria contained in the zoning and land use code, including but not limited to Article 13, Section 4, approval criteria, and that approval be granted with the following conditions. 2, prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, the applicant's engineer shall certify that all improvements have been completed in accordance with the approved plans.
Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you. Any discussion about the motion on the floor? Can we have the roll again, sir?
Roger Dupree,
yes,
Michael Marcotte,
Yes.
Mark Roy, yes. Shanna Cox?
Yes?
Alexander Pine,
I'll abstain.
Zoe Lindstrom?
Yes.
Thank you. And in previous votes, we have occasionally asked for any rationale behind an abstention. Would you like to place any on the record?
Sure. I think I like the direction that we headed with our first motion to sort of look into this. I feel like we're sort of, we're trying to undo sort of inconsistency in the past with a little like more firm but still inconsistent process a little bit. So just putting it on the record for that. I don't have a problem with the project or anything like that.
Thank you. I'd also like the record to reflect this evening the request to follow up on the implementation of shrubs being added to all zones, specifically industrial, and a recommendation for staff on what we could do to address this at the root so that we can maintain consistency in a way that is logical based on tonight's discussion. With gratitude.
Sorry for the trauma.
We would like to make things better in general, and it is always nice when we can do that in like a meaningful way and not just oh, we like you, get out of here. Because that's not not that we don't like you, but that's not the case. The case is to really be able to apply it. And if there's places for us to improve that, then we should.
Agree 100%. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That brings me to other business. Item A, the planning board making a recommendation to the city council on the acquisition of 23 Sand Hill Road. Shelley, I believe you penned this memo.
Yes. So administration has directed us to ask for a recommendation on 23 Sand Hill Road. This parcel is being offered for donation to the city by the heirs of the individual who had owned it. There was a demolition that occurred on the property in 2003 after dangerous building hearing. The costs of that and the, costs from that with legal as well as the back taxes total $52,785. By accepting it as a donation, it changes how the city is able to sell the property, which allows the city to recoup any proceeds from the sale. So it's been recommended that the donation would be better than tax acquiring it for the city, and the heirs are happy to move forward with that and just make it happen.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Questions or discussion from the board? Mr. Marcotte.
Seeing as how a original owner is now deceased, do we have the date of death?
No, I do not.
Do we know, well, if you don't have that, do we know when the tax debt matured?
I don't know that, given that the dangerous building hearing and demolition happened in 2023. It probably, the majority of it, I would assume, accrued before the building was no longer on
Well,
site.
that's why I'm wondering whether the date of death became before 2023, whether the city knew the person had been deceased when it matured, or while it was maturing. At what point did code enforcement know that the building became dangerous? Obviously before 23, because that's the date that it was declared, if I understand correctly. And here we are sitting in 2025. I notice that the memo doesn't include the differentiation between the real estate dollars that were matured and the demolition costs to arrive at $52,000.
The second page does offer a little more information. The unpaid taxes and utilities amounting to $26,307.
Oh, okay.
And the demolition
is
and legal being an additional $26,477.
nearly the same exact amount.
Yeah.
That's why I also wonder about the individual's date of passing, because notice it goes out to, I'm wondering who the notice may have gone out to, that it was a dangerous building and for demolition. Did requests go unanswered? And then, of course, the city takes action on tearing down dangerous buildings, as we've seen all through Lewiston over the last more than a decade, close to 2 decades. Also, do we know what the status of the estate is? Maybe the estate is such that it can afford to cover these debts. These debts are to the city of Lewiston and to the rest of the taxpayers of the city of Lewiston who contribute to a treasury to fund all the things that we do fund, whether it's police or education or social services or anything. To simply say, donate the property and we'll write it off, doesn't seem fair to the taxpayer. And it's for that reason that I will be voting no on this particular item.
Thank you. Further discussion from the board? If any of the questions that you just offered, Mr. Marquette, are ones that you'd like answers to, can you follow up in a written email with some of them? I'm not sure they were all captured.
Well, no, at this time, I don't need to have a follow-up on the questions. They
Okay.
they went unanswered, they weren't prepared for tonight, and the city staff is expecting us to rubber stamp things, and I'm not a rubber stamp. I've said that before, and it continues to hold true. Come prepared with these answers that you know that we're going to ask for. Don't expect us to just sign off on such things, and that'll be that. So in the future, hopefully, requests will be more complete. And if they're complete, then maybe I can vote yes. I have no reservations on where this is going to go tonight, so that'll be that.
I hope the comments from Mr. Marcotte can be captured and shared with those who have requested our staff in the room make this action today, and that staff in the room recognize that was not necessarily directed at you. I certainly can appreciate that the confidential conversations between loved ones and heirs of somebody who's deceased that might have been happening over 6 years could be something that we're not able to be privy to.
But if that's the case, then we could be called into executive session and to discuss things that may be a little sensitive. But it's also insensitive to the city of Lewiston to absolve $52,000 worth of debt to the city of Lewiston in order to have a clean title so that the city of Lewiston can turn around and sell a property, maybe at pennies on the dollar. I'm familiar with this area. I grew up in this area. I know what that particular road work back there looks like. You want to talk about sand? We talked about sand in the previous agenda item. There's a lot of sand out there. I don't know who's going to buy this property from the city of Lewiston. But if we continue to buy properties at 3 times the assessed value and then sell them for much less, that's not something I'm going to sign on to. Maybe other people have no problem looking at the city's treasury as monopoly money. I don't. It's as much my money as it is anybody else's that pays taxes in this town.
Thank you. I'd encourage you to come to city council after the recommendation to make those same points to those who are making the request of us today. Are there others from the planning board who have discussion on this item? I'd be looking for a motion, please.
I make a motion to pursuant to Article 7, Section 4H of the Zoning and Land Use Code to send a favorable recommendation to the City Council for the acquisition of 23 Sand Hill Road, including, if any, specific conditions raised by the Planning Board, which I don't believe there was any.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Dupree. You can call the roll.
Do we do any discussion on this?
This is not a public hearing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Roger Dupree,
Yes.
Michael Marcotte,
No.
Mark Roy, yes. Shanna Cox.
Yes.
Alexander Pine,
Abstain?
Zoe Lindstrom.
Yes.
Anything that either Mr. Marcotte or Mr. Pine would like to offer for the record?
I'm happy to provide something. Yeah. So I thought the points made by Mr. Marcotte around the advantage to the city of whether we go through this on a tax acquisition process versus a donation. I think that is something that is interesting to me. The reason I abstained, however, is I need to refresh our role in this. Are we just looking at this from purely a land use perspective, or are we looking at this from other perspectives as well? And from what I recall, our role really is a land use perspective. So I think, it is good that we do have some sort of cognizance around the financial aspects of this. I do wonder if our purview, our umbrella allows us to cover that on issues like this based on what it is. So anyway, I thought it was a good point. I thought it was sort of an interesting one that I hadn't thought of before, and I abstained for that reason.
I think it's a fabulous point and one that is aligned with City Council's purview and the Finance Committee's purview, and thus my vote, yes vote. Mr. Marcotte.
I thank Alex for that. I didn't even realize you had abstained when we had the roll call. I was better prepared for this over the weekend than obviously coming into this meeting and having the discourse we had on the previous item and then this item. And when Alex was speaking of a few of the points that he had concern on, it refreshed my memory, so I picked up the first sheet in front of me, which is not a acquisition, it's a disposal. And I don't know that the acquisitions have the same guidance, but looking at this particular, the next agenda item, which I'd like to see split into two, by the way, it says that the board does have the right to consider the proposed use of the property, the value of any proposed improvements to the property, the impact of the sale or lease of the property on the assessed value of the adjacent property in the same ownership, and the extent to which the sale or lease will support overall city policy, i.e. comprehensive plan in the area of or neighborhood within which the property is located. It sounds like four really good bulleted items to address acquisitions as much as for disposal of properties.
I believe that we can't relate those points to something that we don't yet have our hands on, and that the fundamental difference between the acquisition and the language there and the disposal is this allows a clean title and an easier pathway to disposal, which is normally something that you lift up. What are the financial benefits to disposing of a property? I love that
What are the financial benefits?
I'm going to finish my
acquiring?
sentence without being interrupted and give you the same courtesy, right? That the acquisition allows us to acquire it, and we were presented with two pathways. One is more complicated and more costly, and one was a clean title, thus my yes vote. When that comes before us, should the city want to dispose of it, we'll be able to apply this criteria to that conversation. And I think the points that you made here today should be revisited at that point. Mr. Wright.
Also, another important point is if it's tax acquired, you can't keep all the proceeds. That's another important point.
Yeah.
We can keep them up to the point of our cost, which we are not going to get $52,000 for this piece of land with no building on it, in the area that it's in, particularly.
Sure.
Go visit that area.
Okay. Item B, and I did hear your request, Mr. Marcotte. I think you were noting not to split the agenda item, but to split the motions on the one agenda item. Is that accurate?
Yes, I believe that 834 Main Street and 40 Robinson Gardens should have been separate agenda items and
Okay.
taken separately.
All right, so then we'll do other business B, the planning board making a recommendation to the city council on the disposition of 834 Main Street, period. I think that's you again, Shelley.
Yes, okay. So these two properties are both city-owned. The first one, 834 Main Street, is the former fire station. It's in the Highway Business Zoning District. The current assessed value is $115,400. What the city has typically done is when it sells a fire station, it uses the proceeds from that to fund future fire station construction. So that is the intent that the city has for this. And yeah, that's pretty much what I want to say about that.
Thanks.
If you have specific questions, we can get into it more, but.
Great. Mr. Dupree?
Shelley, question. Wasn't one of the reasons why they want to replace that station is because of mold and the lack of space? Have they done anything as far as mold remediation on that?
I don't have history on that building, so I'm sorry.
Are you asking out of concern for the intent to resale the property for its current use versus a
Exactly.
new
I want
use?
to go back to what Mike was saying. The thing is that looking at that building and what needs, they've got a value of $115,000 on it. And without having something done with mold remediation, that's going to be another, $35,000, $40,000, $50,000.
Or it's a demolition and a
So
rebuild?
the thing is now, you're not going to sell that building for $115,000.
I don't know what they would market it for, and I don't know what the market would pay for it.
Well, the market's not
As-
going to pay more where that building is located and the size of that building.
Mr. Pine?
Just as a reminder, assessed value isn't market value. So, when we're looking, I hear the concern and I think it's valid, but I just want to make it clear for record. That's the assessed value that we would estimate for our tax rolls, not necessarily, given the current building, given all of that, not necessarily, as you were saying, Shelley, the market rate that we may receive for that.
Any other comments? Mr. Marcotte?
Maybe I should, but trying to get my head around both of previous conversations. That 115,000, obviously this is a city-owned parcel that's assessed at 115,400, with which we don't pay taxes to ourselves anyway, but it is still incumbent upon the city to to appraise every item, just like the way we do for the stormwater levy. The city's geography is also counted into that mix, and they assess themselves in an accounting fashion. I find it hard to believe that this property will sell for $115,004. I understand that appraised value is typically less, assessed value is typically less than appraised value or the actually eventual sale of a property. It is in a tough area, right on the corner. Is it a property that's going to be more desirable by a neighbor to expand a little bit of lawn area? I'm not sure if that's a business next door or a personal residence. At least on the other side, it's a personal residence. Therefore, we can expect this property to sell for much less than $115,004. If somebody's looking to put some sort of housing on that parcel, they're going to want to tear down the building, probably make an offer of a very small amount to purchase basically the land in order to have the financial resources to build on it, whether it is a residence, housing, 1 unit, 2 unit, 3 unit, or whether, I'm not sure what the zoning is. Might actually be highway business opportunity for somebody. But
Mr. Marcotte, may I encourage you in the context of this language to offer your comments in the format of you making a recommendation to city council on each of these criteria? I've also heard that from Mr. Dupree, and I think our task today is to make a recommendation. And so instead of recommending that which we don't want to see or minimizing that.
Well, right now, I'm just simply making comments on this particular item because I came here with the personal judgment that I was voting in favor of this one because there's not much that can be done. Same thing on the Robinson Garden, but there are comments to be made on Robinson Garden as well. I'm not interested in making recommendations to the council that are going to go on deaf ears. So we'll do.
So no specific recommendations?
I wasn't expecting the condemnations and, if that's not, I know it's not the right word, but you know what I mean?
I hope it's not the right word, because that's not what I've tried to offer tonight.
And, yeah, and I had a follow-up to that, which I just lost, but,
Well, I mean, so for example, Mr. Dupree mentioned that the proposed use of the property, unless it includes a demolition by the city, might include remediation or addressing remediation in the negotiation of the sale of the property, is a way to frame his concern as our recommendation to city council as they dispose of this property, for example.
well, it's also a topic that we should be made informed right up front. I mean, like I said on the previous item, these recommendations come to us with as little information as possible. We're waiting for the questions to be answered. If there are no questions, hey, that's great, we get to leave earlier. But if there's questions, the answers are pretty much we don't know. I have a problem with that. It happens too often. I've been on this board for more than a cumulative decade at this point. And it hasn't changed from one administration to the next. It's got to change. Just don't take us for granted and then send it up to the council, who probably spends just as little or even less. I've been there. I know what that's like. And a lot of times when it comes with a planning board recommendation, it's simply, well, was the recommendation a yes or no? And that's pretty much none. They've got some heavier items to deal with, as we all know. So that's why we're dealing with these questions here, so that they don't have to.
And so just for my own understanding, you're not proposing any recommendations related to those 4 bullet points for 834 Main Street at this time?
No, just like on the previous one, I didn't want to add recommendations to the actual motion, and I don't want to do it with this one at this time either.
Okay. Is there anyone else from the board who would like to offer any discussion or recommendations relative to the areas that we may consider? Alex?
I would like a little, if possible, I'm curious, it just popped into my head. This is a smaller lot and sort of an odd-shaped lot in highway business. Is this a developable lot, given how highway business is written now? And I know this sort of is maybe a more in-depth question, but I'm just wondering about setbacks and things like that. I think, you know, if we are making recommendations about whether we want to sell the property, sort of, or entertain that, or make a recommendation to council, we're looking at proposed use, we're looking at how it fits in with city policy, right? And so understanding, like, A, is this something that's going to be marketable? B, are there any other land uses that we would want it for internally? Or, you know, something like that. But I think in my mind, the first thing that comes to mind for this particular property is, and I've ridden past it a ton of times on my bike, it's an odd shape, it's an odd place. And I'd be curious what the setback requirements are, because if it's so small, you know, but I also think it's a wonderful place because it's on a corner of a road, it's a very visible location. It could be a really wonderful retail spot.
Yeah.
So.
I'd like to
So
follow
there
up
is
on that.
no minimum lot size because it is on city sewer and highway business. So if the building was demolished, there's no issue with it becoming non-conforming and unbuildable.
Got it. And in terms of setbacks and things like that for highway business, is that uniform across the zone or particular to use?
It would require a 15-foot setback from the front
Okay.
And the side and rear would be a 10-foot, and that is
Oh, yeah.
uniform for all uses in that district.
So, based on that, it sounds to me like it is actually quite a marketable lot, even if it was demolished. That's really great information. I appreciate that.
And I think to Mr. Marquart's point, the kind of information we'd like to see included in the meadow when administration, which is an overarching term, is making a request for us to provide recommendations. We aren't being provided much information other than a street address. Mr. Marquardt.
Okay. To follow up on Alex's comments about the size of the lot and stuff, I had to do this weekend because I have a hard time thinking of .22 acres or .26. And my research, hopefully it's correct, that .26, which was the previous agenda item, is akin to a 100 by 100 lot, which I can conceptualize a little bit better.
Yeah.
That I think we have a problem with trying to get setbacks on 50 by 100 lots, right, in downtown Lewiston. So when I'm thinking 100 by 100 lot, would be, 2.26 would be bigger than that, then that's developable. But that's usually when you're looking at something that's square or rectangular. And I'm not sure about the diagrams on these past two items. You say 15 feet from the road and, 10 feet from the side lots. How much of that property would be removed for an actual building to be put on? I don't know. I can't conceptualize that in a graphic in my head. But if it's on paper, then we could.
Thanks, Mr. Roy.
Regardless of the recommendation we make to the city council, do they have to take it? So if we send them
They're not required to follow our
So
recommendations.
then who cares what recommendation we make? Why are we wasting our time? I just don't get the waste of breath that
Yeah.
we're spending here. I get, okay, it's nice to make a recommendation, but spending any more than 2 seconds or 2 minutes on this is, to me, a waste of time.
Would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to make a recommendation to dispose the properties, both of them.
Would you like to use it?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I'm sorry, I just get so
I'm
annoyed.
here
I
to
get so
support
annoyed
some
with
good
being,
process.
I get so annoyed with being just so fruitless. I mean, whoop-de-doo, you know?
Your point before you make the motion is not lost on me and has
Yeah.
been made by multiple board members,
Yeah.
which is you are not providing us a lot of information, nor do you have the information, nor are you the one requesting it to
Yeah,
us.
no, I'm not angry with
Yeah,
you.
no, I'm
I'm
just-
not frustrated with you. I'm just,
I didn't hear you as frustrated
Yeah,
with
no,
Shelley
I'm-
or staff. What I am making a note of is in the language here, administration is making this request of you to put in front of us. We're not provided additional information. It's been stated more than once that perhaps city council doesn't need our recommendation given the weight of other things on their agenda. And we're not entirely sure what our recommendation provides, particularly when it isn't given anything other than a street address. So please do let the record reflect that discussion. Please make your motion.
yes. I make a motion pursuant to Article 7, Section 4H of the Zoning and Land Use Code to send a favorable recommendation to the City Council for the disposition of 834 Main Street and 40 Robinson Gardens.
Are you going all in?
Well, that's
There's
what-
been a request to separate them,
Oh,
and we've
okay,
only
fine.
discussed.
Fine, 834 Main Street.
Thanks. Is there a second for the motion?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion, Mr. Marcotte.
There is a role for the planning board to weigh in on these, because we're the planning board, keepers of the comp plan. And we also spend a lot of time on the regulations that go into zoning and such. And that's why the city council counts on those recommendations. That's the way that our city charter is designed. That's the way that our code of ordinances are designed, and there is value. Unfortunately, the value can be increased and decreased by the amount of input that we get. The council has very rarely, but on occasion, done something different than the recommendation. It's got to be something of serious nature. If it's a unanimous decision, I don't think there's an example of going against us on any unanimous decision. split decisions, yeah, I might go a different way on the city council, and there's one particular type of motion that the city council must have a supermajority to override a recommendation. And if I'm not mistaken, that's when we provide recommendations on an actual ordinance change, correct? That's always been one of those things that's hard to keep in your library of procedures. But I think it's when we make a recommendation on an ordinance. If it gets a majority recommendation from us, city council would need a fifth vote in order to go in the other direction. But as far as these procedural items for acquisition and disposition, yeah, because I know that in the past, we've basically, and I've been responsible for it, probably about 10 years ago, make a motion to table. And if we table it, city council can't do anything. But then the council comes back and says, we can give you a time-specific, 30 days, 60 days, whatever it is. It's actually in codes somewhere, city charter or ordinance, or wherever it might be, rules. There are 3 different levels. And that was, so if we didn't take an action, they could take an action anyway. I just thought at the time that motion to table was a neat way to try to prevail on the item, and eventually we would have had to acquiesce. But there is a role for the planning board. It is not a waste of time.
Thank you. Other discussion on the motion that's on the floor? I'd like to contribute my own, which is simply to say, should it be noted and read by council or administration? This is a valuable corner lot. I am in favor of disposing of the property so that we're not holding on to a fire station that could somehow serve some better use, whether it's in our tax rolls or in some other version of Parks and Rec. I'd like to ensure that we follow the best practices, which I'm sure we do, noting and disclosure around mold in the property in its resale process, should that be the direction city council goes. Those are my notes for the discussion item. Any other discussion notes before we call the roll? Could you call the roll, please?
Roger Dupree,
Yes.
Michael Marcotte,
Yes.
Mark Roy, yes. Shanna Cox.
Yes.
Alexander Pine.
Yes.
Zoe Lindstrom.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to take up item 5B2. The planning board making a recommendation to the city council on the disposition of 40 Robinson Gardens. Shelley, number 2, please.
Okay, so this 30,056 square foot lot is, was purchased by the city in 2022 with stormwater funds. The purpose of the purchase was to allow the city to do work in the backyard of the property. When you look at the map that we've included, you can see Jepson Brook runs through the backyard, runs essentially under the garage. So what they did was demolish, well, I guess it doesn't run under the garage. Anyway, they demolished the garage because the stormwater runs very close to it. That's the sewer pipe you're seeing. And can you turn on the stormwater as well, Craig? Yeah, so the stormwater line you can see there. So they demolished the garage so they could move the sewer line over to the north so they could make a larger box culvert for Jepson Brook to reduce flooding in the neighborhood. So that was the reason for the purchase. They've completed the project other than developing a maintenance easement that they plan to do prior to marketing it for sale, and they plan on reselling the house.
Thanks. Alex?
I think there's clear information here that is a very marketable property and that it's a good idea to sell it. So I'd like to make a motion pursuant to Article 7, Section 4H of the Zoning and Land Use Codes to send a favorable recommendation to the City Council for the disposition of 40 Robinson Gardens without any specific conditions.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. Discussion on this item. Mr. Marcotte?
Having reviewed this item and remembering when it came before the planning board 3 years ago, Thought it was a travesty that we had to buy this at 3 times the value of the assessed value in order to tear down the garage to do this project. It's good that we can get it back onto the tax rolls by selling it. I doubt very much we're going to get our investment into it. And I'm not counting the sewer work. I'm just saying that the original purchase price is not likely to be achieved. Again, I'm just making that as a statement. I was fully prepared to vote for this, in favor of this tonight. But
Thanks.
I just need to put that on the record.
Thanks. Other discussion? Can we call the roll, please?
Roger Dupree,
Yes.
Michael Marcotte.
Yes.
Mark Roy, yes. Shanna Cox.
Yes.
Alexander Pine.
Yes.
Zoe Lindstrom.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. We have our other business, which was added prior in the evening, which is taking up an extension for the Martell Apartments Phase 1. I will note, both for the board and for the permanent record, that we were provided with some updated information from Shelley, as well as a letter from Acorn Engineering and a map that were provided to us just prior to the meeting tonight. In framing this conversation, before we open it up, I'd like to note that I received a phone call today, was asked about whether we would be able to adjust our agenda to adapt for this. The questions that I asked in making the choice to both talk to the applicant and encourage us to take this agenda item up was that there is no public hearing required. There are no changes to the plans that we had already seen and approved, and that this extension is an extension both driven by some changes in key staff personnel on the project, and that the project, should we approve this tonight, an extension is moving forward imminently this fall. All of those items made me think this was worth the planning board's time for a discussion. I do want to note that the late nature of receiving this request was one I weighed carefully. What we're being asked to do is provide a motion that would extend this. In the motion that was provided to us, we're looking at an extension through September 25th, 2027. We're noted in materials provided to us that the plans should be moving forward and construction should be happening fairly quickly. So I have a staff question, which is there any reason that we need to make it through 2027? Work doesn't need to be complete by the motion we're making today. It needs to have started. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the way the ordinance lays it out, work has to start within 2 years, or you can approve 1 2-year extension for the work to start.
So we wouldn't be able to do a 1-year extension, for example. Okay, that answers my question. Any additional information you'd like to provide?
No.
Okay. Would you, sir, like to come up, state your name for the record, and offer any additional comments before we open up discussion with the board?
Good evening, Penn Lindsay, Lewiston Housing Authority Director of Development. First of all, thank you very much for addressing this request tonight, and thank you very much to staff for helping to get this in front of Planning Board this evening. As has already been stated, we are very excited to be moving forward with the Martell School Apartments project, and we're in a position where we're going out to bid right now and expect to be moving forward with closing and then construction before the end of the year. So we are requesting an extension just really to allow us to keep that momentum and that progress going.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? I'd be looking for a motion, which is provided for us in the back of the memo.
I'd like to make a motion pursuant to Article 13, Section 11 of the Zoning and Land Use Code to grant a 2-year extension of the September 25th, 2023 development review approval to Lewiston Housing Authority and Lewiston Auburn Area Housing Development Corporation for the amendment of the development review of Phase 1 of the Martell School Apartments at 860 Lisbon Street until September 25th, 2027 to start construction.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion about the motion? Can you call the roll, please?
Roger Dupree,
Yes.
Michael Marcotte.
No.
Mark Roy, yes. Shanna Cox.
Yes?
Alexander Pine.
Yes.
Zoe Lindstrom.
Yes.
Thanks. Anything that you'd like to put in the record about your vote, Mr. Marcotte?
It's consistent with my vote on the initial approval.
Thank you. Would be looking to, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You're all set.
Appreciate it.
We'd be looking for the reading of the minutes, the September 8th, 2025 draft minutes will be available for review at the next meeting, in which we're not looking for anything from you all tonight except an acknowledgement of that. Wait, stay tuned. Is there anything else we wanted to discuss this evening? Mr. Pine?
Just very briefly, I think in the recommendations on disposition, we came up with some handy, useful information that we learned about these properties that I think could be just sort of incorporated for future approvals. Hearing Mark's frustration with the process of it not seeming more sort of a procedural thing, I wonder if there is a way to make it more useful so that we are able to talk about it in terms of how it fits into the comp plan, and that information can get relayed onto the council so that they can, when they're very busy, they can look at it really quickly. So I'm wondering if it would be possible for future dispositions to just have information about, is the lot buildable? And then maybe, in the case of having a structure, if there's any detail about the structure that we can get very easily through, information the planning staff already has. That could be really nice to just have as part of the public record. It's info out there, people can see it.
I mean, I would add to that, for whatever purpose, you might summarize this in the notes and pass it on to administration, of whom I think is the recipient of this request and would meet that request going forward. But we're given specific criteria. What information relative to those 4 points might be provided? I appreciated that what the funds would be used for, earmarked for, was included consistently on both, but other than the street address, that was the only information provided. And it has been clear what administration suggests we're making recommendations related to, which means that information is available to them as well. So anything they could provide on those would feel pertinent. Anything else from anyone on the board tonight? Mr. Marcotte?
Actually, thinking of this weekend, I almost forgot. I've been concerned about some downlighting in the Lewiston area, and I've made my concerns known to the third floor, and not in writing, but verbally, and I don't see anything that has been addressed on the 2 properties that I mentioned. I noticed that the one development review that we had tonight for the first time in probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 to 5 months, we need to give a reason for people who want to locate their businesses and large cost development items in Lewiston. But when you go through an intersection and the light is blaring in your eye, I'm waiting for the first lawsuit by the people in that accident against City of Lewiston concerning that downlighting. That's not very far into the past project, whenever it might have been approved. Whether it was approved by the full board or by staff review, I don't remember, don't know. The other property is coming down the highway from southbound on the highway, and it's definitely not downlighting. My idea of downlighting is when the cap to the light, you're seeing black here. The light's in the fixture going down. It's not going across the highway. It's not going into the middle of a major 4-way intersection in Lewiston, and it needs to be tackled and addressed. I know of 2 locations, there may be plenty more. And whether it was part of the development review or not, I don't know. Sometimes, obviously, it depends on whether it's grandfathered or not, right? If it wasn't in the ordinance at the time. But it is extremely hazardous to the drivers in both of those situations that I've recounted. I'm trying to think of the phrase that attractive nuisance. Maybe that doesn't fit, but it was a very worthwhile piece of vocabulary amongst code enforcement back years ago when I made my comment about a particular property with an unattended hole that filled up with over 10 feet of water. I mentioned that to Gil Arsenal. That's years ago. And it got addressed pretty quickly. So if anything can be considered an attractive nuisance, I know which buttons to push in that case. Whether this is considered an attractive nuisance or just some sort of life safety issue, I think that would qualify perfectly well, life safety issue. First time somebody's in an accident and they attribute it to that, I bet you there's a lot of lawyers out there that would love to take on that case.
Thank you. Anything else? I'd be looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Thanks. Is there a second?
Second.
From Zoe. All in favor? Thanks so much. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, these chairs are basically good enough in your coat. Yeah. I feel like stylistically it would fit really well with the space.